Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, Vietnamese Navy planes find objects suspected of belonging to a missing Malaysia Airlines jetliner. Planes and boats will be sent back to the area once dawn breaks to investigate further. North Koreans head to the polls to elect a rubber-stamp parliament. The vote for the Supreme People's Assembly is the first in 5 years and the first under the leadership of Kim Jong-un. Plus, in a move that is expected to cripple the nation's hospitals, tens of thousands of doctors start a scheduled one-day strike in protest against the government's plan to introduce telemedicine and for-profit subsidiaries in hospitals. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To all our viewers here in Korea and around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Monday, March 10th here in Seoul. You're watching Daybreak and I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, Vietnamese planes have spotted possible debris from the missing Malaysia Airlines jet that seemingly vanished into thin air on Saturday with more than 200 people on board. Search and rescue teams will try to confirm the find once the sun comes up. Chae-Yu-sun has the rundown on the latest developments.
With every passing hour, hope is fading for the families of passengers on a Malaysia Airlines plane that disappeared from the sky early Saturday. The Boeing 777, carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew members, was heading to Beijing from Kuala Lumpur when it lost contact at around 1:30 a.m. local time Saturday. The plane is widely believed to have crashed in waters off the southern coast of Vietnam. Malaysian authorities say, based on radar signals, that the passenger jet is thought to have made a U-turn before disappearing. This has prompted officials to expand their search area to the western Malaysian coast. The U.S. has dispatched a destroyer to help with the search and rescue operations, along with a group of transportation safety experts to assist in the investigation. While hesitant to pinpoint terrorism as the reason for the downed plane, the Malaysian government is looking into 2 passengers on Flight 370 who used fake passports.
I'm in touch with the international intelligence agencies. At the same time, our own intelligence have been activated. And of course, the counter-terrorism units, CTIs and CTUs.
The BBC reports that a man booked his flight with a false Italian passport at the same time as a second man who used a fake Austrian passport. Both of the passport owners recently had their documents stolen in Thailand. Authorities are also investigating the identities of 2 other passengers on the flight. The 239 people on board the Malaysia Airlines jet were of 14 nationalities. A majority were Chinese and the rest from elsewhere in Asia, North America, and Europe. Chae-Yu-sun, Arirang News.
And some extra information coming in. Officials investigating the disappearance of that Malaysian airliner are narrowing their focus of their inquiries on the possibility that it disintegrated mid-flight. This according to Reuters, citing a source close to the preliminary investigations. It goes without saying that we'll be bringing you all the latest updates on this story throughout the day. Now, North Koreans flocked to the polls on Sunday as North Korea held its first parliamentary elections under the leadership of Kim Jong-un. Kim is expected to use the poll to promote officials loyal to him and further consolidate his power. Kim Min-ji reports.
North Korea on Sunday held nationwide elections for a new rubber-stamp parliament, the first under the leadership of Kim Jong-un. The elections, which are held every 5 years, is expected to shed some light on the power shift taking place in the regime and will likely be used to promote officials depending on their loyalty to the young leader. The North State-run Korean Central News Agency said all voters that had registered went to the polls, with the exception of those who were abroad or at sea. The voting began at 9 a.m. and ended at 6 p.m., and voter turnout is expected at 100%. The Supreme People's Assembly fields one candidate for each of the 687 constituencies, with the voters only required to cast yes or no ballots. The results are expected to be announced later Monday. Kim himself was registered as a candidate in the constituency of Mount Baekdu, a mountain on the Korean peninsula which Pyongyang describes as the birthplace of Kim and his late father. The Korean Central News Agency said Kim voted at the Kim Il-sung University of Politics, along with top officials including Chae Ryong-hae, director of the General Political Bureau of the Korean People's Army. It also said Kim was accompanied by his younger sister, Kim Yo-jung. It's the first time the younger Kim has been mentioned on state media, although she has been seen on North Korean television before. Kim Yo-jung was listed along with senior officials of the Central Committee of the ruling Workers' Party. North Korea experts say she will likely take on the role of her aunt, Kim Kyung-hee. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Libya's navy and pro-government militias have dispatched boats to a port held by armed protesters to stop a North Korean flagged tanker from leaving with crude sold without government permission. The tanker docked on Saturday at the eastern terminal of Al-Sidra, one of 3 ports seized by rebels since August, to press demands for autonomy and a bigger share of oil revenue. A local daily says the ship has been loaded with $36 million worth of crude. The rebel oil sale illustrates the deepening turmoil in the OPEC producer, which has failed to rein in fighters who helped oust Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, but who now defy state authority. Prime Minister Ali Zidane said on Saturday the military would bomb the 37,000-ton Morning Glory if it tried to leave the port. Back here in South Korea, and tens of thousands of doctors across the nation are going on a one-day strike on this Monday in protest of government plans to shake up the medical sector. The government has vowed to take legal measures against those who take part in the strike. Kwon So-ah reports.
A one-day strike led by the Korean Medical Association will go on as planned this Monday. Doctors won't be providing medical services, and many hospitals across the nation will be closed, although emergency rooms will remain open. Starting Tuesday and running through March 23rd, the strike will transition to a work-to-rule action, meaning doctors won't work more than 40 hours a week and will treat patients for no longer than 15 minutes. A full 6-day strike is then planned to begin on the 24th. Monday's walkout will be larger than initially expected, as the Korea Intern Resident Association announced its participation on Saturday. That decision was spurred after the government said it would press criminal charges against striking doctors and suspend their business operations.
The walkout coming in the middle of the negotiation process between the government and the medical association is unacceptable. It's clearly an illegal action that puts public health at risk. It's regrettable that we had to make the extreme decision of closing hospitals and not treating patients. I am resentful toward the government.
The KMA strike was called in protest of a government plan to introduce a telemedicine system that would allow for patients in remote areas to be diagnosed via webcam, smartphone, or even email. KMA doctors say it will impair the quality of medical services. The Medical Association is also up in arms over a government move to run for-profit subsidiaries. While the government says it will improve the nation's medical industry, the KMA says it will only lead to a hike in medical bills. Doctors are concerned the reforms could eventually lead to privatization of the medical sector. In order to minimize inconveniences on Monday, usually the busiest day for hospitals, the government has ordered public health centers to extend their hours. The medical strike stands to be the largest in 14 years, and with negotiations between both sides at a stalemate, some fear it will continue for the long term. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
University of Virginia, Party 1 reports. Coalition will be launched. Try and resolve.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Kim Jong-un reports. Korean Foreign Minister Kim Jong-un has demanded... The executives and employees of 38 Korean public institutions under fire for massive debts and lax management will not get raises this year if they don't clean up their act. That's according to Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok, who says organisations that do poorly on a government evaluation in September won't get pay raises. On the other hand, the top 10 ranking institutions will receive additional bonuses, while an evaluation team will focus on the organisation's normalisation efforts this year. Hyun said a priority would be placed on cooperation between management and unions next year. One of the troubled entities, the Korea Gas Corporation, says it will restructure, sell assets and expand capital to slash almost $10 billion in debt by 2017. Now, ahead of its latest legal tussle with Apple, Samsung has reportedly decided to withdraw some patent claims from its latest litigation with the US firm. Foss Patents, a German-based blog that specializes in intellectual property rights, says Samsung has filed a stipulation with the US District Court of California to narrow their case by dismissing 3 claims regarding standard essential patents. A standard essential patent is a patent that claims an invention that must be used to comply with a technical standard. Samsung has earlier filed for 5 claims against Apple, including 2 non-standard essential patents. This news comes as Apple and Samsung are set to return to court on March 31st in order to iron out their ongoing patent dispute. Social networking and mobile communication services are shoring up their resources as mobile messaging sees a surge in popularity. Son Jung-in reports.
Companies in the social networking and mobile communication sector are enjoying the benefits of a robust and growing mobile messaging market as they gear up for a battle that would determine who will become the top brand for more than 1 billion smartphone users worldwide. In Korea, search engine Naver is #1 thanks to its mobile messaging app Line. Line's annual sales last year stood at $427 million, a 690% increase from a year earlier. The messaging application has grown to more than 370 million subscribers since its creation in 2011. Naver's market value in Korea is $27 billion, the 5th largest in the country, and there's only a small gap between it and 4th place SK Hynix and 3rd place Hyundai Mobis. Naver saw its stock value skyrocket after it split from NHN last August. That landed the company in 6th place, allowing it to overtake Kia Motors in December. And just last month, it beat POSCO to take 5th place. In the global mobile messaging market, Facebook is also back on track since topping its sales target in the 3rd quarter of last year. Its recent acquisition of fast-growing messaging startup WhatsApp has also helped it maintain its momentum. Social media giant Twitter is also going strong. Its initial public offering was priced at $26 in November last year, but now its share price has nearly doubled to roughly $54. China's biggest internet company, Tencent, which operates Weibo, the Chinese version of Twitter, has 600 million registered users and a share price of nearly $80. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper is set to arrive in Seoul on this Monday for a 2-day visit. The presidential office of Cheongwadae says President Park Geun-hye and her Canadian counterpart will look into expanding cooperation in the areas of trade, investment, resources and science technology when they meet on Tuesday. The security situation on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia is also likely to come up. It's in fact Harper's 4th trip to Korea since December 2009. He and President Park first met on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Bali last October. There is more worrying evidence that bird flu is spreading as the first case of the H5N8 strain of the virus has been confirmed at a chicken farm in the city of Gyeongju, Gyeongsang-Bukdo province. The chickens were originally from the city of Pyeongtaek, where there has been an outbreak, but were wrongly given the all-clear to be transported. The case has raised concerns about sloppy testing on the part of inspection authorities. The local authorities in Gyeongsang-Bukdo province have culled more than 120,000 chickens and plan to cull 380,000 more in an attempt to contain the spread. Now, soccer fans have an exciting summer ahead with the World Cup finals kicking off in just 3 months' time. South Korea are playing reasonably well in the run-up to Brazil, notching up a confidence-boosting 2-0 victory against a strong Greek side last week. Our Song Ji-sun gives us a rundown of what lies ahead for the team.
After registering a strong 2-0 victory over Greece in Athens on Thursday, confidence is running high as we edge ever closer to the World Cup finals in Brazil, especially as Korea's star striker Park Ju-young scored his first A-match goal in over 2 years. Park has had a season to forget, spending most of it on the sidelines for the English Premier League side Arsenal. Despite the rosier spirits, Korea is going to face a tough time in Brazil. Other contenders in Group H also won in their friendly matches, with Russia beating Armenia and Algeria beating Slovenia, both 2-0. The Korean players will go back to playing for their club teams for the next 2 months, and by mid-May, head coach Hong Myung-bo will submit a preliminary entry to FIFA with 30 football players' names on it. On May 28th, the Korean squad will invite Tunisia for a final friendly match at home before the World Cup. Following the match, the final roster will be announced and the squad will fly to Florida for training, where the climate and time difference is similar to Brazil. FIFA has to receive the final roster by June 2nd, and the Korean team must be at their base camp set up at the Iguazu Falls by June 12th, according to FIFA's regulations, to be on standby 5 days before the first group match. And the first match against Russia will be pivotal in making it to second stage by qualifying top or second in the group. Team Korea's Brazil dream is to advance to quarterfinals for the first time at a World Cup on foreign soil. 송지선, Arirang News.
Good day, I'm Eunice Kim, and here are your headlines from around the world. We begin with the latest on Ukraine, where the struggle over the Crimean Peninsula continues. Over a telephone conversation with Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel on Sunday, Russian President Vladimir Putin defended Crimea's moves to break away from Ukraine to join Russia in a referendum vote scheduled for Sunday. This as thousands staged rallies in Crimea, escalating into street violence in Sebastopol, and a group of Ukrainians were attacked by pro-Russian activists. Foreign media reports that local broadcasts have been replaced by Russian broadcasts, and Russian forces also seized another border post, tightening their grip on the Black Sea Peninsula. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk said he will travel to Washington to meet with U.S. President Barack Obama on Wednesday. Washington maintains it will not recognize the results of the referendum meant for the Crimea to join Russia. Dozens of people have been killed and more than 100 others wounded following a minibus attack in the southern Iraqi city of Hilla. Authorities say a suicide bomber drove through a checkpoint on Sunday in a bus believed to have been packed with explosives. The minibus blast affected surrounding cars in line at the entrance to the Shia-dominated city during morning rush hour. The attack comes ahead of elections next month. Reports of casualties are conflicting. At least 32 are said to have died, with some media outlets reporting as many as 45. Over to Beijing now, where the Chinese government has expressed its will to get tough on polluters and vowed to toughen its environment protection laws as well. The commitments came in a high-level report delivered by Politburo Standing Committee member Zhang Dizhang, which also said that polluters would be held accountable for the damage they cause. This get tough stance comes after China's Premier Li Keqiang declared war on pollution during Wednesday's session of the National People's Congress, and as the impacts of pollution has emerged as one of Beijing's key priorities. Critics, however, have adopted a wait-and-see approach as Sunday's report lacked specific enforcement measures. Almost all Chinese cities monitored for pollution last year failed to meet state standards. A team of U.S. researchers say they found that a blood test can predict the onset of Alzheimer's disease. Scientists at Georgetown University conducted a 5-year study during which they examined blood samples from 525 elderly persons and found that testing levels of 10 fats in the blood could predict the risk of the silent disease over the following 3 years with 90% accuracy. Their findings were published in the biomedical journal Nature Medicine. If the results can be repeated in larger clinical trials, experts say it would serve as a turning point, as Alzheimer's is known to quietly attack the brain for more than a decade before symptoms can be detected. 44 million people globally are reported to have dementia.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off in the Ladies European Tour, where Park In-bi tallied her very first title of the season after a convincing win at the World Ladies Championship in China. Now, after going into the final round of the event with a nice 4-stroke lead, Park In-bi continued to storm through the 18 holes of the event as she shot a 6-under on the day to finish with 24 under overall. Now, coming in second was her rival Suzanne Pettersson, who finished second at 19 under par overall, with Lee So-yeon finishing off at third with 16 under overall. And moving over to figure skating, where after another controversial post by the IOC, they've decided to delete their article from their website. With the IOC stating that Kim Jong-un has accepted her loss to Adelina Sotnikova, the fans got involved once again, stating that the IOC is making up stories. While the figure queen acknowledged Sotnikova's performance, she never openly stated that she lost to the Russian gold medalist. And with that, the IOC has deleted their post as the figure skating controversy continues on weeks after the Olympics. And back here in Korea, it might have taken them 17 years, but the Changwon LG Sakers are the league champions after Sunday. That came down to the very last game of the season, the KBL, as the LG Sakers were able to beat the Busan KT Sonic Boom 95-85, giving them a record of 40 wins and 14 losses, tied with the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus. But with LG having a better head-to-head record, LG takes the title, claiming their first title in team history. And more league champions, this time over in V-League, as the Samsung Hwajae Bluefangs continues to dominate the league after winning their third straight league title on Sunday. Now going up against their rivals, the Hyundai Capital Skywalkers at Cheonan, Leo Martinez leads the way with 49 attack points on the day as the Samsung Hwajae Bluefangs cruise through 3-1 as they claim their third straight league title. Now finishing off their season at 23 wins and 6 losses, the Bluefangs now get a bye to the 2014 V-League Championship game. And now finishing things off with some Sunday's K-League Classic action, we had the Gyeongnam FC win their first game after beating Seongnam 1-0, with Suwon pulling away with a 1-0 win over Jeju United. We want an exciting match between Sangju Sangmu and Incheon United, so let's take a look at the highlights. Now going into the game, exciting really isn't the right adjective in the first half of the match as both sides go scoreless after the first 45 minutes. Second half, things don't look too exciting here until the 75th minute. Nam Ju-jae scores the first goal of the match, giving Incheon the 1-0 lead. But just 2 minutes later, here is Sangmu leveling it thanks to Lee Jung-hyuk finding the back of the net, and it's 1-1. Fast forward to the 85th minute, Iho this time, he's going to send this one down the line and pokes it in 2-1 Sangmu. Now clock winding down and Sangmu looking to get a win here, but just 2 minutes later, once again, here's Lee Hyo-gyun with the equalizer, and that's your final after 90 minutes, 2-2. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about half an hour's time, and we'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.